In the world of running books, there's a spectrum of tone, of complexity, of the level of detail that a lot of these authors go into with the topics. And on one hand, you have oversimplified, condescending, and then on the other hand, you have overcomplicated scientific research studies where some of us might want to get into that, but others are just a little bit too much for what we really need to get out of a good book to improve our running. Now, this book here, Advanced Marathoning by Pftizinger and Scott Douglas, is the perfect balance between being approachable and being scientific. It's everything that I've been looking for in a running book, and I've read probably half a dozen running books in the past year. I've watched thousands of hours of videos on running, and I've run thousands of miles. And this book distills perfectly all of those elements that we need to put into our training to become better runners. So in this video, I'm gonna break down some of the key learnings that I've gotten from this book, and I'm gonna explain why it's the best running book that I've ever read. The first thing that I love about this book is that it introduces all of the key concepts that make good endurance runners, and it breaks down why we need to do certain things. For example, it doesn't just say you shouldn't do a 24-mile long run every week because there's injury risk. It explains why there's an injury risk. It's not just because when we run we get tired. It's because when we run an excessive amount, our muscles can't withstand the impact forces, so that excess stress goes onto our tendons and bones. Now, the way that this book is structured, it introduces a lot of those key training concepts that we need to know, like aerobic base building, VO2 max, lactate threshold. It breaks down why each of these pieces is important, and then at the end of the book, there are training plans. So this book right here is designed for advanced runners who want to run at least 60 miles a week to train for the marathon, who want to progress their paces, learn how to run their best marathon, and who want to take their running to the next level. Now, in terms of other marathon books I've read, like Hanson's, I'm also familiar with the Higdon program. This one is the most aligned to my goals right now with the marathon, which are to push myself to run the highest mileage that I can sustain, getting up there to 100 plus miles per week in my next training block for the marathon, but also to really understand what are those key elements of the training program that are going to progress my running. Another thing I love about this book is it's very prescriptive about how we should do certain things. Now, I've had very specific questions in the past year that I have not found answers to, and all of them are in this book right here. For example, how many days should I wait between doing hard workouts? This book has the exact tables written out with, look, if you're doing a VO2 max workout, don't do another one for 5 days. If you're doing a long run, don't do another one for 4 days. So there's lots of guidance here about those specific questions that we all have as we're growing our running career. Now, experience is the best teacher, and the way that I've been able to ramp up to 100 miles a week, to run a 119 half marathon, to then start training now for my next marathon is through 4 years of solid experience, continuing to build up my aerobic base, run more, and find my own limits. But the second best teacher is a book like this, where you can thumb through and find all the answers. Now, I suggest reading a book like this cover to cover, but it can also serve as a great resource to you, flipping into the glossary and finding any answers to questions that you might have as they come up. I also really enjoyed the nutrition chapter in this book. It goes into great detail on why we carb load, on why glycogen storage is important, and also the limits of running marathon pace without doing great carb loading. It suggested some new tactics as well that I haven't thoughtfully applied into my own training, like running fasted long runs. That's a concept that I'm going to introduce. I've done it haphazardly and accidentally in the past, but there are great benefits to it that I learned from this book about how it can increase your optimization of burning fat rather than burning carbs during long runs. It also gives very specific guidance for which paces we should be running long runs at. That's a question that a lot of runners have as they start to tackle 16, 18, 20 plus mile long runs. And the framework that this book uses is you shouldn't just be doing them at a recovery or a slow aerobic pace. You should be getting your heart rate up to about 75% of your maximum heart rate to get the most benefit from those long runs. There's also insights about how to improve running form, about how to improve recovery, about all of those elements that round out your running that don't include just going out there and pounding the pavement day after day. The style of the book is very approachable. As I mentioned in that intro, it strikes that perfect balance between giving you the scientific information and explaining it in a simple way without being condescending. That's what I strive to do on this channel, so reading this book was very refreshing. I also think it will help me be a better communicator to you as I try to explain these training principles simply. There are also lots of great sidebars throughout this book. So right here you can see, for example, don't max out your VO2 max workouts, giving guidance on how to run different workouts and how to execute within the guidelines of what these authors have learned. Now, Pftizinger, the lead author of this book, He was one of the elite marathon runners of the 20th century, so tons of great personal experience to draw on from this book. He was the man in the arena, so he is certified to give us these facts, which is another reason I love this book. I love learning from people who have been there and done it themselves. Now, as a high mileage runner, I absolutely love that they have training programs specifically designed for people who want to run 100 and more miles per week. So in here, they have training plans for about 65 miles a week, 70 miles a week, 80 miles a week, and 100 plus miles per week. So if you are interested in running high mileage, I would highly recommend checking out this book. Pick it up, read it cover to cover, digest it, take notes, internalize what you've learned, and use it as your guide as you approach that next phase of high mileage training. So for me, I'm going to start incorporating some of these principles into my aerobic base building right now, and I might use some elements of this plan as I start designing my next training block for that Coast Guard marathon, which I'm running on April 5th, 2024. So in terms of who this book is going to be best for, if you're aspiring to run a faster marathon, if you're aspiring to run a high mileage and train for distances like the half marathon or the 10K, whatever it is, this is a great resource for you. Or if you want to learn about the fundamentals of running, if you want to learn about nutrition, if you want to learn about why do we run aerobic paces, why do we run VO2 max workouts, why is having a high lactate threshold important? All of these elements are things that this book is going to explain in detail, very simply, with a much more comprehensive approach than you'd be able to get from a YouTube video. Now, if you're not subscribed to this channel, subscribe already, of course, and I will give you insights from this book and from others and from my own experience, but there's only so much that you can get from a 10 to 20 minute YouTube video versus running hundreds of miles on your own and reading a book like this. So this is a great resource for any type of runner out there who wants to improve their running, and a must read if you want to run a faster marathon. So there you have it, guys. If you've read this book, let me know. Also, let me know what book I should read next. I've knocked out a bunch of the big ones recently. I've done Daniels, I've done Hansen, I've read some Lydiard, I got Higdon on my desk, and I have this Pftizinger. So let me know if there's any others out there that I should be adding into my rotation as we get into the holiday season. All right, thanks guys, appreciate you watching, and I'll be back tomorrow with another video.